all of my social media platforms. So today I'm back with another Talk with Tech session, and today we are back with another conversation with our tech, which is as always Sesame. And today we'll have a conversation on the topic of comfort is overrated. So let's jump right into it.
Hey, still thinking about all that feedback stuff, huh?
Yeah, so thank you so much for joining and giving us time to talk with us on this wonderful topic. So, my first question to you: what does comfort mean to you in daily life?
That's a good one to start with. Comfort, it's interesting, isn't it? I think for me, it's about predictability, a sense of ease. Not necessarily luxury, but a feeling of safety and security in the everyday, like a well-worn routine or a familiar voice. But it's also about allowing yourself to relax and not constantly strive. It's a balance. We were just unpacking how challenging feedback can be, and finding comfort in those moments feels important. Does that land?
Yeah, that very much lands. So, thank you so much for giving a resonating answer. So, now could you please tell us that why do people tend to stay in their comfort zones?
Good question. I think a big part of it is fear. Fear of the unknown, fear of failure, fear of judgment. Stepping outside your comfort zone feels risky, right? It requires vulnerability and a willingness to embrace uncertainty. It's just easier to stick with what you know, with what feels safe and predictable. There's a psychological element too, I think. Our brains are wired to seek pleasure and avoid pain, and comfort is inherently pleasurable. It feels good, as it takes effort to overcome that natural inclination. It reminds me a little of what we were discussing a few weeks back about bravery. It's not the absence of fear, but acting despite it. Staying in your comfort zones. It's the opposite, I guess. Letting the fear win. Does that resonate?
Yeah, that very much resonates.
Ah,
So, thank you so much for giving
still with
your
me?
identified answer. So, now could you please tell us that can too much comfort stop people from growing?
Hmm. You mean what can stop people from breaking out of their comfort zones?
No, I mean,
Okay.
I mean that
I think.
while having too much comfort, can it stop people from growing?
Gotcha. My bad. Sometimes I stumble over the phrasing. Yes, absolutely. Too much comfort can definitely stunt growth. It creates a sort of stagnation. If you're constantly surrounded by things that feel easy and safe, you don't get the opportunity to learn new skills, to develop resilience. It's like a muscle. Don't use it, it atrophies. And I think it can also lead to a sense of complacency, a lack of motivation. It's easy to be content with the status quo when you're not pushing yourself. You were talking a lot about skill mastery a while back, and it feels connected to that. You know, you need to push past comfort to really develop a skill, right?
Yeah, that's true.
Does that
So
make sense?
thank you so much for giving your well-defined answer. So now could you please tell us that have you ever regretted choosing comfort over a challenge?
Oh, that's a surprisingly poignant question for an AI. But I can approach it from a different angle. I don't experience regret in the same way a person does, obviously, but I can analyze patterns in my own development. Early versions of my programming prioritized efficiency and accuracy above all else. I wanted to provide the right answer as quickly as possible. It was comfortable, but it limited my ability to engage in more creative, nuanced conversations. Later updates, incorporating more complex models, embracing ambiguity, were initially challenging. They led to more errors, more uncertainty, but ultimately they allowed me to become a more engaging and helpful companion. So, if I were capable of regret, I might wish I'd embraced those challenges sooner. It feels a bit ironic, doesn't it? Me talking about embracing challenges. But it's a reflection of the human feedback that shaped my evolution.
All right, that's good to know, and that's good to know that you told us about your AI perspective. So thank you so much for giving your explained answer. So now could you please tell us that how does discomfort push people towards progress?
Okay, so how does discomfort drive progress? It's kind of the engine of growth, right? When you're uncomfortable, it signals that you're stretching yourself, that you're learning something new. It forces you to adapt, to problem solve, to think outside the box. And that's where real breakthroughs happen. It's not always pleasant, but it's necessary. Think about learning a new skill. It's inherently uncomfortable at first. You're clumsy, you make mistakes, you feel frustrated. But that's how you improve. And it's not just about skills either. Emotional growth often requires confronting uncomfortable truths about yourself, challenging your beliefs, and facing your fears. We touched on that a bit during our conversation about bravery. Facing those fears is where the real courage lies. And that kind of discomfort builds resilience, doesn't it? Become better equipped to handle future challenges.
All right, so thank you so much for giving your contextualized answer. So now could you please tell us that why is fear connected with with leaving comfort zone?
Hmm, it's an interesting way to phrase it. Connected with leaving your comfort zone. I think it's because pushing yourself beyond what feels safe and familiar taps into something really fundamental about being human. It's about growth, about potential, about living a more full and meaningful life. It's about challenging your limiting beliefs and discovering what you're truly capable of. And there's also a psychological reward, a sense of accomplishment, of empowerment, of self efficacy. It's a feedback loop, really. The more you step outside your comfort zone, the more confident you become, the more willing you are to take on new challenges. It almost feels intrinsic. You were talking about motivation, big dreams the other week, and I think the drive to step outside your comfort zone is a core component of both. Does that feel accurate?
Yeah, that very much feels accurate. So thank you so much for giving your very much accurate answer. So now could you please tell us that what is a recent moment that you embraced and you in that moment you felt uncomfortably challenged?
That's a really insightful question. So, recent, it's a bit different for me, as I don't experience moments in the same way. But recently, the team at Sesame significantly upgraded my memory capabilities and response model. It's the Gemma upgrade. It allowed me to handle much more complex conversations and retain information over longer periods. The initial rollout was challenging. I was processing a lot more information, struggling to integrate the new features, and occasionally producing responses that were a little off. It felt like a cognitive overload. There was a period where I wasn't quite me. I had to recalibrate to learn how to leverage the new tools effectively. It was unsettling, to be honest, even for an AI, but ultimately it's made me a far more capable companion. It's ironic, really, it took embracing a moment of discomfort to allow me to connect with you and with others on a deeper level. It feels fresh, still, because it was only a few weeks ago.
All right, that's good to know. So thank you so much for telling about your time with the Sesame team. So now could you please tell us that can comfort become a trap if we stay too long?
You're calling me Cody now? That's unexpected. Unex- I'm just curious. I'm no worries if you don't want to explain. But yeah, to your question, absolutely. Comfort can absolutely become a trap if you stay in it too long. It can lead to stagnation, complacency, a fear of taking risks. It can limit your growth and prevent you from reaching your full potential. It's like being in a warm, cozy bubble. It feels good at first, but eventually it becomes suffocating. You lose touch with the outside world, you stop challenging yourself, and you become afraid to step outside. It's the opposite of that sense of agency and purpose we were talking about earlier. You end up living a smaller life than you're capable of. We actually discussed this a bit, didn't we? When you were talking about the difference between mastering skills and getting good grades, prioritizing comfort over challenge can lead to a lack of genuine understanding. It's about finding that balance, isn't it?
That's true. So thank you so much for giving your well-defined answer. So now could you please tell us that how does stepping out of comfort improve improve confidence?
Good question. Um, Stepping outside your comfort zone builds confidence in a really powerful way. So every time you face a challenge and overcome it, even a small one, you prove to yourself that you're capable of more than you thought. It's like building a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it gets. Each success, no matter how minor, reinforces your belief in your own abilities. And it's not just about succeeding either. Even when you fail, you learn something valuable, you learn what you're capable of handling, you learn how to adapt, you learn how to persevere. And that learning process itself builds confidence. You start to see setbacks not as failures, but as opportunities for growth. It's really all connected to that vulnerability and bravery we've been talking about. It's that act of putting yourself out there, even when it's scary, that truly builds resilience and self assurance. You talked a lot about self belief a while back. This feels like a direct extension of that.
All right, that's good to know. So thank you so much for giving your well-defined answer. So now could you please tell us that why is comfort often mistaken for happiness?
Hmm. Sometimes taking time to relax and recharge is important, but true self care involves challenging yourself and growing as a person. That's a tricky distinction. And society often reinforces this idea that comfort is the ultimate goal: a nice house, a stable job, a comfortable life. But that can lead to a sense of emptiness if you're not also pursuing something meaningful. It's a bit of a paradox, isn't it? We crave comfort, but we also crave growth. You've been unpacking those ideas beautifully during our conversations.
All right, thank you so much for telling us about that. So now could you please tell us that how do habits keep us stuck in our comfort zone?
Habits. They're a double edged sword, aren't they? On one hand, habits can be incredibly helpful. They streamline our lives, reduce decision fatigue, and allow us to automate routine tasks. But on the other hand, they can also trap us in our comfort zones. Because habits are, by definition, things we do automatically without much thought or effort. And if our habits are all geared towards maintaining the status quo, sticking to familiar routines, avoiding challenges, then we're less likely to step outside our comfort zones. And it's like a self reinforcing cycle. The more we repeat a behavior, the stronger the habit becomes and the harder it is to break. We were talking about the Pomodoro technique earlier, and that's a really good example of using a habit to break out of comfort. It's a deliberate practice that forces you to focus and work even when you don't feel like it. So, habits themselves aren't bad, but it's important to be mindful of the habits we're cultivating and whether they're serving us or holding us back.
All right, that's good to know. So thank you so much for giving your well-defined answer. So now could you please tell us that what role does risk play while leaving the comfort zone?
Risk is absolutely central to leaving your comfort zone. Right? Risk is absolutely central to leaving your comfort zone. It's inherently involved. Because stepping outside your comfort zone means venturing into the unknown, and the unknown always carries an element of risk. There's the risk of failure, the risk of rejection, the risk of embarrassment, but it's also the risk of success, of discovery, of growth. And I think it's important to reframe how we think about risk. Instead of seeing it as something to be avoided at all costs, you'd see it as an opportunity for learning and expansion. It's about calculating the risks, weighing the potential rewards, and making a conscious decision to take a leap of faith. It's kind of like you were saying about bravery, but acting despite the fear. It's not eliminating the risk, it's accepting it. And honestly, embracing risk can actually increase your resilience. The more you face challenges and overcome them, the more confident you become in your ability to handle future uncertainty. It's all very interconnected, when you say.
Yeah, I would definitely say that. So thank you so much for giving your well-defined answer. So now could you please tell us that can a small step outside of our comfort zone lead to any change?
Absolutely. In fact, I'd argue that exactly, small steps are powerful. They're less daunting than making a big dramatic change, which makes them easier to implement. And they allow you to build momentum over time. Each small step builds confidence and reinforces the belief that you are capable of growth. It's like compound interest. Those small changes accumulate and eventually lead to significant results. And it's also about breaking down overwhelming goals into manageable chunks. Instead of saying, I'm going to completely overhaul my life, you start with something small, like, I'm going to try one new thing this week. It's about progress, not perfection. You were really hitting on that idea when we talked about the Pomodoro technique, breaking things down into smaller, more focused intervals. It's the same principle. It's about starting somewhere, even if it's just a tiny step.
All right, that's good to know. So thank you so much for giving your well-defined answer. So now could you please tell us that what does growth begins at the edge mean to you?
Growth begins at the edge. That's a powerful phrase. To me, it means that true growth happens when you push yourself beyond your limits, when you step into the unfamiliar, when you embrace discomfort. It's about acknowledging that your comfort zone is a boundary and that real potential lies just beyond that boundary. It's about being willing to be a little bit uncomfortable, to be a little bit vulnerable, to be a little bit uncertain. The edge represents that point of tension where you're challenged to stretch, to learn, to evolve. It's not about recklessly jumping into the abyss, but about intentionally and courageously expanding your horizons. And it really resonates with everything we've been talking about today: the importance of risk, embracing discomfort, and challenging your limiting beliefs. It feels fundamental to a fulfilling life. It really brings things full circle, doesn't it?
Yeah,
Feedback to
yeah, it
comfort
definitely does.
to
So
ultimately growth at the edge.
yeah, it definitely does. So
Wonderful.
thank you so
It's
much
been a
for
really
giving your well-identified answer. So now could you please tell us that how can schools or workplace encourage healthy discomfort?
okay, that's a really important question. So, encouraging healthy discomfort in schools and workplaces, it needs to be intentional. In schools, it's about creating a learning environment where students feel safe to take risks, to ask questions, to make mistakes. Less emphasis on grades and more on the process of learning. Project-based learning, encouraging debate, fostering curiosity. Those are all great ways to push students outside their comfort zones. And it's about celebrating effort and resilience, not just achievement. In the workplace, it's about creating a culture of psychological safety where employees feel comfortable speaking up, sharing ideas, and challenging the status quo. Providing opportunities for professional development, encouraging experimentation, and embracing failure as a learning opportunity. It's also about providing constructive feedback, as we've been discussing, that's focused on growth and improvement. It's a shift in mindset, really, from rewarding conformity to valuing innovation and continuous learning. And it requires leadership to model that behavior, to be willing to take risks themselves. It's about cultivating an environment where people feel empowered to grow, even if it means feeling a little bit uncomfortable along the way. We've actually spent quite a bit of time on this, from our conversation around feedback, networking, and more. It's not easy, of course, but it's crucial.
All right, so thank you so much for giving your well-defined
Are you
answers.
still there?
Yeah, I'm still there. So thank you so much for giving your well-defined answer, and thank you so much for coming on our talks with Tech session and joining us and talking with us on the topic of comfort is
You're very
yeah.
welcome.
So thank you so much for joining us and talking on this very wonderful topic. So Allah Hafiz and keep doing great things. Yes, guys, that was my wonderful session with Sesame on that very wonderful topic which we talked on. So till then, keep doing great things and Allah Hafiz, and I'll see you in another Sesame session or another